Welcome, everyone, and thanks again for joining us tonight here on Choices Market's YouTube channel. I'm Darcy Furness, the nutritionist here in the South Surrey location, and I'm delighted to tell you that we're right back to our full nutrition programming. So if you'd like to take advantage of our free nutrition services, reach out to the Choices Markets nearest you to hook up with your nutritionist in that store, or you can send an email to nutrition@choicesmarkets.com and somebody will be in contact with you. And I'll put that into our chat address tonight. And to stay in touch with all things healthy, sign up for our newsletter through www.choicesmarkets.com. That way you get our sales flyers as well. And we'd love it if you followed us on Facebook and Instagram. So for those of you that have joined us before, you know you're going to be receiving a nutrition coupon in the mail to say thank you for watching tonight. And to get that nut buck, you'll be sent a survey email around 8:30. And in that email, we're going to ask you for a few comments on tonight's seminar and also ask you for your full mailing address. And we'll be sending you the nutrition coupon in a couple of weeks. If you have questions tonight, you can enter them into the chat function in YouTube. And to use that function, you'll need to have signed into your own account. Most questions do get asked, but if they don't, you can always contact Dr. Wiley directly through her website. And I will put that information as well in the chat function. She's also offering a complimentary 15-minute meet and greet if you'd like to learn more about naturopathic medicine and what kind of a fit you might be with Dr. Wiley. So that information will also be linked for you. And now that we're live streaming on YouTube, you can come back and watch the presentation as many times as you'd like, or that saves you from having to take any notes because the information will be there in perpetuity. Now, Dr. Miranda began her career in natural health at 13 years old when she scored her first summer job in a health food store. That was it. She was hooked. Fast forward to her completion of a Bachelor's of Science degree in human nutrition at UBC, and later she graduated from the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine, also here in BC. Tonight, Dr. Wiley is going to educate us as to how and why gut health plays a significant role in our mental wellness. And she's going to show us ways that we can really help ourselves in that area. And thanks to Renew Health for sponsoring us tonight. I'm going to be popping out and Dr. Miranda is going to get started here and I'll pop back in to handle some questions. So please enjoy the seminar and thanks so much, Dr. Wiley.
Awesome. Thank you, Darcy, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your evening or afternoon to join us here. I really do appreciate it. I know we're all kind of hitting a lot of fatigues and Zoom fatigue is one of them. So it's all the more special that you came along. And perhaps you did so because you've got some issues that you're struggling with. And hopefully by the end of this, you feel a little bit more empowered and able to take that on. So tonight we're talking about how it's not all in your head. There's a lot of stigma still around mental illness, and we're finding more and more research, more and more evidence that it's not just what you think. Your gut is actually dictating a lot of those feelings and emotions. And if we can regulate both sides of that catch-22, then we can have much healthier digestion. We can have much healthier mental outlook. It's a little bit about me, but not too much because Darcy covered it. I am Vancouver based. I practice out of Siena Pharmacy in close to Yaletown. I graduated from the Boucher Institute, which is now CCNM Boucher campus. I have more than 30 years experience in the natural health industry. I did start young, and I'm very, very grateful for that experience. And it kind of just set me on my path in life. A compassionate and curious practitioner and teacher. I do believe I am compassionate. I want people to feel good. I want to feel good. I think the world has a lot to benefit from the wealth of medicines available to us in nature. Doctor comes from the word docere, the Latin word, which means teacher. So it's not my job to say, take this, do that. It's to educate someone on, well, this is why I think this would be helpful for you. And this is why I think that would help. And then they take it like, okay, that did work, or no, it didn't. And how can we adjust it? And so there's a lot of learning on both sides. Creative whole food cook. I do really enjoy playing in the kitchen. That's sort of my time to decompress and be creative and feed my family. Eternal student. I love learning more and more and more. So medicine's great for that because medicine keeps changing. So even when the time I graduated in 2009, some of that wisdom is now passé and no longer applicable. Yoga enthusiast as much as I can, and playful mother to two wee ones who are growing up. I've got birthday party planning on the brain right now for a 4-year-old. There's my website there. I also know it's going to be in the chat box, but yeah, please feel free to get in touch. Meanwhile, let's get on with today's topics. It's a long list, but it does flow, I think. We're going to talk about the gut-brain connection. The gut is often called the second brain, and we'll discuss that. The microbiome, that family, that powerhouse of bacteria and microbes that live in and on our body, and the factors that affect it. What do these microbes do? When they are not in balance, that's called dysbiosis. We want to look at the impact of stress on the microbiome, and conversely, a little bit of the impact the microbiome has on our ability to handle stress. How does an unhealthy gut lead to anxiety and depression? Like it can be a causative link, and I'll touch base on a little bit of chemistry there. How probiotics can help. Where does Renew Life fit into that? Because they are predominantly a probiotic company. Some relaxation and coping strategies. And then there's a few other elements and supplements and things we want to consider when we're looking at healing the digestive tract and therefore really supporting our mental, emotional health. So the gut-brain axis, there is a connection, there is a direct line between the two. So it's a bidirectional communication between the central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord, and the enteric nervous system, which is our guts, our digestion. And that links emotional and cognitive centers of the brain with our peripheral intestinal functions. So when you're getting a gut feeling about something, your brain, your second brain in your belly is sensing and sending that information up to the brain. When you get butterflies before seeing someone who you like or giving a talk, we're getting that connection. We have that sense in our brain, or you get some bad news and you immediately throw up or feel nauseous or have to run to the bathroom. So we have that two-way communication. And we're learning more and more about how they do that. It isn't just a single highway between the two. There's multiple paths, just like there are in any city to get from point A to point B. You can take the side roads, you can take the direct routes, but ultimately there's going to be a flow of traffic. So some of those communication between the microbiota and the brain, we're learning about the vagus nerve, and I'll talk about that quite a bit tonight. I think it's really, really key, and there's some pretty exciting research coming out of that. And simple, like this is stuff you can do at home, and you should be doing at home, as much as I don't like the word should. Gut hormone signaling, the neurotransmitters involved, the immune system, looking at tryptophan metabolism. That's an amino acid that's used to make serotonin and melatonin. And then some of the metabolites that the microbes produce, such as short chain fatty acids. And so it's not just in the gut, it's having an effect in the brain as well. So the vagus nerve, a little bit of sort of the sciencey stuff here, and then the what to do about it comes closer to the end of the presentation. The vagus nerve is one of our cranial nerves. It's cranial nerve number 10 of 12. And so it starts in the brain and it runs down our neck. It goes around hearts and lungs and down to sort of the diaphragm and down further. There are some branches that extend even deeper into the digestive tract and make contact with that. It is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is when we're in fight or flight. It's our survival, boom, boom, just get the job done. Parasympathetic is when we're relaxing. So there is definitely a big role between the stress and gut when we look at the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, it's acting on the brain, the pharynx, the lungs, the heart, the esophagus, the stomach, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the small intestine. If we look at the last few, esophagus, stomach, gallbladder, pancreas, small intestine, all of those are very, very key in our digestive function and how we're going to get that food and that nutrition we just ingested into our system and benefit from it. So it physically connects the gut and the brain. It sends signals in both directions. It's about 80% from brain down, but 20% from gut up. And stress inhibits that signal. This is part of the more relaxed arm of our nervous system functioning. When we're under stress, we're squashing that signal down. This is not important. Let's stay alive right now. And we need to find that balance between, yes, this is important. And in the long term, it is going to enhance our quality of life. Neurotransmitters, we're also finding big overlap. So, I mean, most of us know about neurotransmitters in our brain. If we look at, things like GABA, which is acted on by a lot of sleeping medications, serotonin, antidepressants, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, increasing that happy hormone in our brain, dopamine, which helps with focus, concentration, addiction management, so that balance in life, norepinephrine, one of our stress hormones, also helps with focus, and ability to stay concentrated on the task at hand. All of these also work in our digestive tract. We have receptors for GABA, serotonin, dopamine, and our norepinephrine in our gut as well. So unfortunately, when IBS sort of became on the scene and doctors are, well, we don't know what to do about this. It's all in your head. You have this, variable stools and you've got pain in your belly. I don't know, I'll give you an antidepressant. And the sad part was it worked, which just reinforced the notion that people were just, too stressed out and not thinking clearly, and they're just sort of imagining or creating these gut symptoms. But it worked because we have serotonin receptors in our gut. And so by shifting those neurotransmitters, it was actually having a positive effect. So it's nothing to do with, just making it up or thinking that you're having digestive issues. Or legitimate discomfort and variable stools. So we're seeing that connection between the neurotransmitters themselves. And then the microbiome. So learning so much more about this every year, every decade, or we're still sort of in that exponential curve. The microbiome definitely is one of the most significant discoveries in medicine. When the Human Genome Project was happening in the 1990s, there was a monumentous task to take apart human DNA and look at what each little gene code was doing. What's the protein that it makes? What turns that gene on or off to make that protein, or decide not to make it at this time or stage of life or whatever it may be. And then they did that. They finally finished this. It was about a 10-year project. And so what do we do now? And someone suggested, well, why don't we look at the microbiome and look at the DNA of all the microbes that are living in and on us? And so much to learn. Our body literally contains trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, and that's collectively known as the microbiome. So we can look at sort of the flora and fauna that covers our planet, and different geographical regions have different plants that grow and different animals that thrive. And we have, similarly, in our digestive tract, we have different microbes in our mouth, in our stomach, in our small intestine, in our large intestine, on our skin, in the vaginal canal, up our nose, right? They're everywhere, but they are very specific to the geography of our body. And some bacteria absolutely are associated with disease. We know that. Louis Pasteur, opened our eyes to that. Unfortunately, the understanding back then was that all bacteria are negative and associated with disease. But now we know that some are extremely important for our health. If we are lacking good bacteria, we are no farther ahead. We want to find the balance between the bad guys, the bad seeds in our neighborhoods that make everyone else sort of work harder to keep this community alive and healthy, and get rid of all that spray paint. And we want to have a little bit of that balance. If everything was all sunshine and roses, we probably wouldn't thrive as much. We need a little bit of angst. And we know that having diversity in our microbiome, so not just, I tree planted for 4 years in university just to pay my way through school, and going into regions of British Columbia and Ontario where diverse forest systems have been completely clear cut and sent off to the logging industry. And now we were going in and planting just pine, just spruce, one monoculture over acres and acres of land. It has an impact. You're not going to have the same diversity of plants coming in, the same diversity of fauna and little animals coming through, because they might not like living in a pine forest. They might have preferred more of a deciduous forest. So same with our gut microbiome. We want that diversity, and that's really been associated with good health. The microbiome affects our body from birth to death. It evolves over time. Babies come into the world not sterile, but naive in their microbial makeup, and they get more and more exposure as they put everything in their mouth and sample the world around them. We get more and more microbial diversity. And then as we age, that does start to slow down and fade away. So we really need to try to maintain microbial diversity in our seniors. It helps to control the digestion of food, the immune system, our central nervous system, which is the main thrust of today's talk, and various other processes in the body. And as I said, as we grow, our microbiome diversifies, we pick up new species, we may hit a bug and flush out a lot of species, and we want that diversity. So more and more tests also to sort of assess our microbiome diversity and get a bit more of an idea of what our overall health might be looking like. Because what do all these microbes do? This is clearly a picture of the small intestine. We have these long finger-like projections, sort of these villi, and that's our absorptive area for absorbing nutrients. And we can see a few little bacteria and maybe some yeasts sort of nestled in among there. But for the most part, we have access to our nutrients, we can absorb them well. And those probiotics, those healthy microbial communities are assisting to that in some way. Most of them are not harmful to us. Some of them help to produce vitamins. If we are unable to extract them from our food, it's the bacteria, it's that fermentation that will create vitamin K in our large intestine, allow us to absorb that into our system. Some of them help to break down our food. Our chewing, our enzymes can only do so much. The bacteria, again, bringing that added layer, they have their own enzymes. They also want access to some of these nutrients. They can break down the fibers that we cannot. And so they'll help to extract the nutrients that we need to survive, because it's a very symbiotic relationship. We are giving them a nice 37 degrees Celsius, regular access to food, regular access to hydration. You know, we're a good environment, we're a good home for them. And so they want to help us. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. They want to look after us as well. So we have this, they support our health, we support their longevity and ability to replicate. They can also have to synthesize key compounds as well as B vitamins and short chain fatty acids. These are little fats that are only 2, 3, and 4 carbons long, and they are the food for the intestinal cells. So they're helping to keep our digestive tract in which they live, their most immediate home, alive and healthy. They help to teach our immune systems how to distinguish dangerous invaders from innocuous compounds. So we have our innards, which is, our blood and our lymph and our organs and everything with our own DNA imprint. And then we have the external part of the body where we have the food and the bacteria and potential pathogens or parasites. And along our intestine, especially the small intestine, we're very thin. It's just one cell layer thick, that barrier between outside, mostly good, potentially bad, and us that we need to protect. And so we line up most of our immune system along our intestinal tract. So you may have heard that 70 or 80% of our immune system is in our gut, and is really sort of quite specifically along Peyer's patches or lymphatic tissue along the small intestine predominantly, but also in the large intestine and in the mouth. Our tonsils are part of this system that are there to find antigens. There's a bad guy, and beep, beep, tell the system on the other side, let the immune system know so the immune system can get prepared and again, keep us alive. They help to produce their own helpful anti-inflammatory compounds. So they're also actively trying to keep out the pathogenic bacteria, because this is my home, this is my neighborhood. I don't want, the salmonella coming in and ruining everything. We want to keep our host healthy. So they're going to help do some of that work for us. They help to improve our motility. This is the passage of food from mouth through the rectum. So we want to keep that moving along. So they're going to communicate with the muscles, with the nerves, and keep everything going. They also help to support the female microbiome, very specific to the vaginal canal. And then they are also signaling some components of that gut-brain axis and keeping our mental, emotional systems in check. So they do a lot, ultimately, is the bottom line. And there's a number of factors that will affect our diversity, and we know we want it to be more. The type of birth that we have. So we see a little baby down here. We know it is, well studied and well proven that a vaginal birth is best for baby. I always hate this part of the talk because it feels awful as someone who had both of her children by cesareans. They're like, oh my goodness, I did, my poor children got, the worst start in life. But ultimately we can fix all this. It's so like no guilt, no shame, just get the healthy baby out however you need to, vaginally if you can, cesarean if you must. It's legit. And as long as you get your healthy baby, we can then work on the microbial diversity on the other side. Breastfeeding. Again, we know breast is best, but some women are unable to, some babies are unable to latch. There could be adoption at play, right? Formula is this wonderful life-saving fluid that helps babies to thrive. So we can work with the microbiome and support that if your baby needs to be formula fed. It's just been years and years of feeling the guilt when I hear these talks and when I have to give these talks. So type of birth and type of food that baby gets, both important, but don't feel bad if baby didn't get the creme de la creme of vaginal birth and breastfeeding. Our country of origin, right? We are, how am I trying to say? Not victims, we are expressions of the environment in which we grow up. So even if we just look at something as simple as cheeses, they have different flavors and there's different ones associated with different regions of the world. Like the blue cheeses from France versus what might be found in a gorgonzola from Italy. It's different bacteria, different molds, different microbes causing those flavors. So as we live in our environment, we eat the foods, we're exposed to the soils, we're breathing in the air, we are acquiring part of our microbiome from our country of origin. So when we travel, there is the risk of upset, that we could come into contact with microbes that we haven't experienced before, but the locals of that region have, and so they have a different immunity to those particular bacteria. Our diet, for sure. The bacteria ultimately eat what we eat. So if we're eating a beautiful colored salad like this with, different shades of orange and red and green and the rainbow coming through, we're giving a lot of different fibers and nutrients to the microbiome and allowing these ones to thrive and these ones to thrive. They all have slightly different palates. So the more diversity we can get in our diet, the better we're able to feed the microbiome diversity. Medications will have an impact. I'll talk about that on the next slide. Obviously, we're focusing on antibiotics, but proton pump inhibitors will have an effect. Thyroid meds can have an effect. So our medications may be absolutely necessary, but let's just be aware of the fact that they could be impacting our gut for better or for worse. And then we can just offset it. Stress, and we're going to discuss that a lot more today. Toxicity, right? Our food is not the same food that our grandparents ate. It's being sprayed more, it's being treated more, fewer compounds are going back into the soil, more stuff is being sprayed on top. So how well we detoxify will have an impact on our microbiome, and our microbiome will have an impact on how well we detoxify. So again, there's that catch-22, that spiral of let's support detoxification and microbiome at the same time. Let's clean up our diets as best we can and support the gut and get to the benefit. And then our age. Again, we become more diverse as we grow up and less diverse as we age and our digestion changes. Medications. So one quick little slide here. They looked at 835 non-antibiotic drugs were tested on 40 common gut bacteria. And roughly a quarter of them restrained the growth of at least one type of bacterium, and nearly 5% affected at least 10 of them. So the more medications people are on, again, that's something that increases as we age pretty steadily. We're going to be on more and more medications that may each have an effect on 1 to 10 bacteria. And then if you're on 5 meds, you could be interfering with 50 different microbes kind of thing. And again, you may need these medications. And dysbiosis. This is a general term for either the wrong types of bacteria or bacteria living in the wrong part of town. So the wrong part of the digestive tract or the wrong part of the body. So it just in a sense, that's that lack of balance. We want to get into eubiosis, this nice, everything equal and where they should be, which, seems to be like life. We never actually really get to balance. We go a little wobbly this way, that way, but as long as we're kind of standing on one leg and staying upright, you're twitching a little bit to maintain that balance. You're going to eat different foods, you're going to travel, there's going to be impacts. So how can we quickly get back to center and undo dysbiosis? If it's been long-standing, then we really need to address that a bit more aggressively. Because the effects of dysbiosis are wide-reaching, broad spectrum. Digestion is a huge part of my practice, because if I'm looking at someone coming in with mental health issues, I'm like, well, let's talk about your gut. Someone's coming in with skin, rosacea, acne, eczema. Okay, well, let's talk about your gut. I can't lose weight, or I've got blood sugar issues. Okay, let's talk about your gut. So really everything kind of comes down to digestive health. And once we've got that cleaned up, well, my allergy symptoms haven't been as bad since, the bloating went away. My blood pressure's changed. So it's associated with a whole range of very common conditions and concerns that are happening in the Western world. So our gut, skin, and vaginal flora, if they become deranged with normally dominant species underrepresented and pathogenic microbes overrepresented, then those microbial colonies, they start to compete with each other for space and resources, and we end up with that imbalance. So we want to sort of weed the garden and then seed it with the type of microbes that we do actually want. And then the impact of stress. Again, could easily be interpreted as like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, I'm killing my body. And then that just increases the stress. And what we want to do is like, this is what it can do. And here are some tools that we can start taking, because stress is a part of life. I don't think we're ever going to, really be free of it, but how well do we handle it? And I think we know there's different times of our lives when, your partner leaves the cap off the toothpaste. You're like, oh, well, just, did it again, versus like, this is the worst thing ever. I hate you. This is, okay, this is out of proportion. I'm not handling my stress well. So, and that is having an effect on the gut. And likewise, that gut could be having an effect on our ability to cope and adapt. So stress, it's a thing. It happens. Essentially, nutshell, when our life events surpass our ability to cope. So I ask all my patients, what are your major stressors and how do you cope? Do you bottle up? Do you go for a run? Do you drink more alcohol? Do you scream at someone? Like, how do you deal with this? And then some of them be like, oh yeah, it's great. I exercise more. I do some deep breathing, and others are like, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And really, it could be, hurting my marriage on this one. And then we want to intervene there. So most of us, stress is a part of life. I think really all of us, stress is a part of life, and it can either be short-term or long-term. Short-term, you've got that one exam. Long-term, you've been in school for 4 years, writing exams every 2 months. Long-term, convalescence of a loved one or someone who's ill, or what's the word I'm looking for? In palliative care. The pandemic, certainly, right? That was 2 years of stress, and it's not gone. And now we're adapting to the world on the other side with job changes and inflation, all this stuff, right? There's always there, but they usually have those little bursts of stress of, I just need to get this thing done. There's a deadline, or mother-in-law is coming to visit, or whatever it may be. And then, the more long-term things. So we have to balance those. When we're in that acute situation of, oh my goodness, someone's coming at me in the wrong lane of traffic, or they just, I just got yelled at by someone or fired or whatever it may be, we get that stress up. And in those acute situations, it's the physical response is there to protect us. We're going to squash down our immune system. We're going to boost up our ability to mobilize nutrients and get the heart and the lungs and the muscles all involved. But if it's chronic, then we're constantly wearing away at our system. So we need to stress, come back to baseline. Prolonged stress, okay, let's deal with it and start working our way back to baseline. It might take longer, but we need to do that because we need to stay on top of managing our hormone cortisol. Cortisol is our primary long-term stress hormone. It's released by the adrenal glands, which are two just tiny little triangular things that sit on top of our kidneys in the middle of our back. When we're under stress, when we see the bear coming at us, there's an avalanche, or someone's just cut us off in traffic, or yelled at our dog, or whatever it may be, we're going to have that spurt of cortisol so we can get through that moment. But it does have an effect. It's going to increase sugar formation from the liver. And most of us are, we get plenty of access to sugar in our diet. So now we have a boost of blood sugar that even though we didn't eat, we're decreasing our ability to take up amino acids and therefore support our muscle tone. We might even be pulling amino acids from our muscles so that we can make those neurotransmitters that we need to fight or flight and stay alive. We can pull minerals from our bone because, again, immediate survival is key. We're decreasing our ability to absorb those minerals. We may change our gastric acid secretions. You could get that sort of like that wave of nausea or inability to eat, or absolutely famished, but that can also then cause maybe a little bit of damage, erosion, if that acid reflux is coming up. Creating memories of short-term emotional events. So if you are going to give a speech at a wedding and you're nervous and you're nervous and you're nervous, and you get up there and you nail it, cortisol is going to help create that memory of you did it. That was great. So the next time you ever give a talk, I can do this. I know I can do this because I've got that memory of successfully doing this before. If you bomb, then the cortisol is going to help you remember that as well. You'll create that memory pattern. And then maybe you practice a little bit more. You take some notes, you rehearse it, and you sort of find that live. But it's there to help. Okay, here was an experience. It stressed you out. How do you either grow from this or avoid it in the future? So don't dive into a bush if there's lots of rustling noises. It might be a bear, but you gotta find that balance. Remember that. Kidneys, it'll increase the glomerular filtration rates. You might find, you need to pee more when you're nervous or stressed out, or you're getting up at night to pee more. So short spurts, it can boost immunity, right? Squash that inflammation down, deal with that threat, escape from the bear or the saber-toothed tiger, because we're not going to worry about fighting that virus, because if you don't survive this, who cares if you got sick? But in long term, we can have upsets in our inflammation. If we have too much cortisol in our system, we're creating all sorts of problems with our biochemistry, with our amino acids and our minerals and our sugar. And if our cortisol is, if our adrenals get tired and they aren't pumping out enough, and we're on the low side, that's when chronic inflammation can set in. Because if you go to the hospital or a doctor and you've got inflamed skin, you get a corticosteroid cream that is going to squash the inflammation. You got asthma, you get a corticosteroid puffer, reduces the inflammation in the airways. So if you always have a high level, you can be suppressing the inflammation too long. If you always have a low level, then inflammation can run rampant. All about balance. So getting into stress and the gut. So if this talk hasn't stressed you out enough already yet, there are things we can do. But when we are under stress, when life is throwing us a curveball, that can change our motility. For some people, it's like, boom, I'm not going to go for days. And others, it's like, excuse me, I got to run to the bathroom now. So that can have an effect one way or the other, depending on your predisposition and your microbiome. We can have an increase in visceral perception. So this is sort of an awareness, but can also be sort of like that somatic pain. You've got bad news, and now your tummy hurts, and things are kind of aching in your system. Your organs have picked up on that world around you, and you're feeling it in your body. Changes in gastrointestinal secretion, so either more bile or less bile, or more stomach acid or less stomach acid. An increase in intestinal permeability, so we can get more nutrients in. Remember on the last slide, when we're under stress, we have high cortisol, we're decreasing our ability to absorb nutrients. Like, well, if we just take that gut lining and open it up a little bit, get that permeability, then we can get more nutrients through. But it's not ideal because they aren't fully digested nutrients. We can have negative effects on the regenerative capacity of the gastrointestinal mucosa and mucosal blood flow. So essentially, because our intestines are so thin, they are constantly being regenerated, right? Fibers and nuts and vegetable things are going through, they're kind of scraping off that layer of skin. New cells are being made. We're constantly, it's the fastest tissue turnover in our bodies and our digestive tract. And when we're under stress, it's like, ooh, that's not the priority. The priority is the muscles and the bones and escaping the fighting or the fighting or the fleeing. So we have that change, and so we can end up with a bit more porous digestion and therefore more food sensitivities and issues down the road. And we can have a negative effect on the intestinal microbiota. We can be allowing the more negative ones, the pathogenic ones, to thrive. The good guys might not handle that much bile or stomach acid, and they may be a little killed off. So we're changing it. We're creating a dysbiosis. And then stress in our immunity. When our white blood cells go up, when our stress goes up, our white blood cells go down. So we'll become more susceptible to infection. And a lot of us have experienced this where you're like, I'm doing this, I'm going to get through my exam period, and then I get to go on holiday. I'm going to get through this, and then I'm going to go away for March break or reading break or whatever it is. And then, oh gosh, now I'm sick. I was doing so well and then just crashed. The immune system was doing okay. The cortisol was keeping you going. And as soon as that pressure is released, those viruses, those bacteria, all the stuff that was at bay now rears its ugly head, and your immune system has to deal with that. So our lymphocyte levels are low. We're more at risk for viruses. We can see an increase in cold sores or just the common cold, coughs, headaches, tummy bugs. And then anxiety. Research is showing more and more that people who have digestive disorders are more likely to have anxiety. And when digestive disorders improve, anxiety improves as well. I have one patient who had crazy digestive issues to the point where she's going to the hospital for the pain of it. She also hadn't slept more than about 3 hours a night since doing her PhD a couple of years ago. And as we healed up her gut, did not touch her sleeping. As we healed up her gut, she started sleeping longer and longer and longer. She now sleeps 8 hours a night. But it was just, let's focus on this thing that's so painful for you. And then the brain settled down with it. She's my strongest example of that. But it happens all the time. And part of that is we have chemicals in our system associated with our immune system, with inflammation, and they're called cytokines. And they're just tiny little messengers. They're like little emails that are being sent from one part of the body to another. And one of them is called interleukin 6, and it can increase depression. So when you start getting inflammation, you start feeling sick, and it's like, oh, now I'm getting depressed. I'm like, oh no, I can't get sick now. Oh, it's not the right time. I've got so much to do, and I've got this holiday planned. Interleukin 1 increases anxiety. So you get there like, oh no, I can't get sick now. Oh man, not now. No, I feel that sniffle. I've got the tickle in my throat. This isn't the right time. And so we see that. So when there's inflammation in the gut, there could be sort of that systemic experience of anxiety, or a more systemic experience of digestion or of depression. And as we settle down and heal those things up, that we get fewer of those those cytokines, fewer of those signals being sent, and our mental emotional state improves. So again, here we see with a major depression, it is predicted, based on the way that it's increasing, predicted to be the leading cause of disease burden in Canada by 2030. And it's already the leading cause disease burden in women worldwide. So women are definitely feeling it more. So rather than focusing on what's on the head, why are you so sad? What are you depressed about? Oftentimes you ask someone like, I don't know. I'm just low. I'm just blue. I can't get out of bed. I don't know why. I've got, great marriage, great kids. I love my job, but I don't know. I just feel so sad all the time. So now we're looking more at what's in the gut. It's not necessarily external influences. Certainly, yeah, you lose a loved one, you're going to bawl your eyes out for a while. But if our gut is off, we may have more of that long-term experience of like, well, I guess I'm just a depressive. I'm like, well, maybe you're not. Maybe we can clean this up. Probiotics might help. No, nothing is a true guarantee, but let's start with the basics, build up the digestive capacity, and see if we can start smoothing out the mental emotional ride. So according to the World Health Organization, probiotics are live microorganisms, which, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. So living microorganisms, we can't just eat dead bacteria. That is not a probiotic. In adequate amounts, we can't just have, a couple hundred of them, a couple thousand of them. It has to be usually, if not millions, more likely billions. So you want to have that real potency, proven to confer a health benefit. So you can take some microbes and be like, I didn't notice anything, nothing changed. It didn't really affect your gut flora, didn't affect mental health or your skin or anything else. So then that's not a probiotic if it's not conferring a health benefit. And on the host, this has to be something that actually affects us. Other microbes might be more specific for giraffes or for fish or for earthworms, but we need the ones that really work for us as humans. How do we choose a probiotic? There's so many. The advantage to starting in a health food store so young was that there weren't that many. So I've really kind of been able to watch them grow and expand and get more and more sophisticated over the decades. We want to look at our culture count. So a probiotic which contains billions of live cultures per serving so that you get more of the friendly microbes to support a healthy gut. So you're looking for your CFUs or colony forming units. Multiple strains. Again, it's that monoculture idea. We don't want to just cut it down and plant only pines where there used to be, this beautiful borealis forest. We want multiple strains. We want that diversity. So a probiotic supplement contains a variety of bifidobacterium and lactobacillus strains. Get that diversity. Delivery system. So Renew Life probiotics are in specialized acid-resistant vegetarian DR caps. DR stands for delayed release. So they're not just, as soon as they come into that contact with that glass of water, opening up in your esophagus or your stomach. They've been designed to go through the acidic environment of the stomach and then open up farther down the digestive tract. We have targeted formulas. So strain-specific claims are found in some Renew Life formulas for specific health benefits. They're really using their research. Storage. Refrigerated are great for people who take probiotics at the same time every day. More and more Renew Life is shifting over to shelf stable. So you'll see as we go through the select lineup we're going to talk about tonight, they've gone for shelf stable because that's what customers want. And now we have the technology to make them truly shelf stable. 10, 15 years ago, it was like, we don't know how to do this. We're taking living things, we're freezing them, and then bringing them back to body temperature. And some of them don't survive the freezing and some of them don't survive the warming up. So what do? And now more and more research, we know how to do that really safely so that the bacteria can survive that passage. Potency at the time of expiration. So all Renew Life probiotics undergo rigorous testing, which guarantees potency at the time of expiration. And in their new formulas, the expiry date is even longer. Now it's a full 2 years from the date of manufacture. So we have some new packaging in the old ones, the one for women, just shimmying it up, bring the sun down, talk more about how there are some really well-studied formulas, that there's some research in there, just change the logo around, make it clear they've increased the strains. So before there was 9, now there's 12, again, a bit more of that diversity, making clear that everyone knows it's non-GMO. It was on the side of the old box. So just, shifting up their packaging to reflect the newer design, but no refrigeration required. So nice and easy. And we have award-winning formulas. So Renew Life has been in Canada since 2003. They are an American line, but in the last nearly 20 years, so 19 years, they've won over 98 Alive awards. So it works out to about roughly 5 a year. And that's been voted on by both consumers and retailers. So consumers like it, they feel the difference. Retailers like it, their customers come back and buy it again and again. So everyone's happy. So that's a really good sign. And the Alive Awards have been showcasing the best of the best in natural health for more than 20 years. We have a quality, purity, potency guaranteed for every Renew Life formulation, the finished product specification. So what do we want this to do? That is created. That then outlines all the testing requirements specific to that formula. So they're doing the micro testing, looking at the total plate count, making sure that there's no contaminants in there. That's a good thing. Checking for heavy metals. Don't want those. That's a good thing. Checking for pesticides, any residual solvents, or any, anything we don't want. Let's look to make sure that it has the bacteria that we want, and that, everything checks the right boxes in terms of what we're trying to put into people's bodies. But let's also check the stuff that we really do not want to put into people's bodies. So no contaminants, no heavy metals, no pesticides or any sort of solvents. Testing for allergens. So almost the whole line, not entirely. The bulk of the line is gluten, dairy, and soy-free. The entire line is gluten-free. A couple of the products do still have dairy and soy. And then any medicinal ingredients for assay testing, if there is a medicinal ingredient in the formula, then they do the testing for it. So the new family of probiotics, it's a bit more simplified than it was before, and we will touch base on a few of these as we go. Daily digestive wellness. So again, we've got 12 strains, good diversity in both of them. Daily care is 30 billion. That should be plenty for most people if your digestion is going along well. Stools are regular, pretty consistent in terms of size and shape, time of day, easy passage. Not really a concern. Just want to take some probiotics to maintain that and sort of like a multi for your digestive tract, just keeping it going. If you need a little extra care, you're a bit more prone to sensitive digestion. You might need a bit of a boost. If you're going to be traveling and that always shuts things down, then you might want to go for the extra care of the 50 billion. The 50 billion was the biggest seller, historically has always been the biggest seller. So keep that in mind. The ultimate care, the 100 billion, this really is like you're doing something to kill the good bacteria in your gut. You're on antibiotics. This would be the one to sort of balance that off. So 30 to 50 billion, just kind of keep everything bobbing along where it should be. But if you're actively killing them off, we want to be actively bringing them up again. So you would not take this in the same swallow as your antibiotic because it's just going to nullify both. The antibiotic's going to kill these guys rather than the bad ones in your system. And you're wasting time and money and effort. Let's get rid of the bad guys. But a couple hours later, take a probiotic. A couple hours later, take your next dose of antibiotic. A couple hours later, take a probiotic. So you want to really just keep that boosted up. A little heavier on the bifidobacteria. These ones are more specific for the large intestine, the bowel, but pretty close. The lactobacilli, these are a bit more specific for the small intestine and the vaginal canal. Women's digestive wellness. So these are 12 strains. They're not the same as the ones that we saw in the digestive care. A little bit of overlap, but some pretty unique strains, but all based on research done on women. So it's one thing to have it, it's proven in a Petri dish. It's shown to be helpful on monkeys. It's like, no, this has been actually tested in human women, has been shown to help balance out the microbiome. So women who are prone to, so it helps maintain healthy vaginal pH, yeast, urinary tract, vaginal flora, and feminine health. So we have that research behind there. And then the kids, we're just going to talk about one of the formulas, a good overall balance. It's 10 billion strains. This one is still designed to be refrigerated. That said, I think, one tablet, throw it in your kid's lunchbox a couple hours, as long as they're not, in the middle of August or July and it's blazing heat, just for a couple hours at roomish temperature would be fine. But for the most part, you're keeping that bottle in the fridge. It's a berry flavored tablet, tastes good. And you've got 9 different strains to support a kid's health. So we're keeping their digestive system and their immune system kind of overall balanced. Other things we want to think about, if we're looking at how to support the gut and how to support the brain, omega-3 fatty acids are essential. Great evidence all over PubMed, good research for decreasing inflammation. And remember, I said, some of those inflammatory markers, some of them help to increase our feelings of depression, some of them help to boost our feelings of anxiety. So get that inflammation sorted, and that is going to help with that mental emotional state as well as cooling the inflammation happening in the gut. Omega-3s have also been shown to be directly helpful for brain tissue, nerve tissue. So it's a double win. You're supporting digestive health by reducing any inflammation in the gut, and you're actively supporting the nervous system and the tissue in the brain. The Renew Life difference, what they do differently in a fish oil supplement is that their capsules, they use fish gelatin for the capsule. So it's not fish oil in a cow or a pig-based gelatin cap. They add lipase. So fats are they're a single stick with 3 fatty acids coming onto it. So you flip it around, maybe think of almost like a broom or a really weird 2-pronged fork. That's way too big for us to digest. We can't absorb that. So we have enzymes that snip those 3 fatty acids off of the backbones. Our triglyceride gets broken down into 3 free fatty acids and a short little 3-carbon long backbone. Now it's small enough. Now we can absorb it. That enzyme is lipase. They bring in lipase to improve people's ability to digest this fish oil, absorb it, get it into their digestive tract, reassemble it on the other side. So that's a really nice bonus. If ever people have taken a fish oil capsule and like, oh, I keep burping up fish all day, try this one because that added lipase really helps to make it a lot more digestible in the system, less fishy burps. Enteric coated, so that it does bypass the acid of the stomach again and helps get through to where we can absorb it more effectively. Potent formulas, so good strong doses. IFOS, this is the International Federation, no, oh geez, International Fish Oil Stewardship. I think that's it, fish oil stewardship. They certify for purity and potency. So they're looking at how well are these fish being raised, either in aquaculture or are they being, how are they being farmed? And then ensuring that there's no PCBs and dioxins and heavy metals and other sort of ocean contaminants coming through. Fish oil stewardship, pretty sure, International Fish Oil Stewardship. And then Friend of the Sea certified as well. They're also a third-party organization that looks at sustainable aquaculture and sustainable fishing. So supercritical omega is the only one we're talking about tonight because it's so strong. One capsule and you're getting 790 milligrams of EPA. This is your most potent anti-inflammatory fatty acid. And then DHA, smaller amount, but this is the one that really feeds the brain, the eye, the nerves. And then we got a bit of vitamin D in there. There's the lipase, vitamin E to help protect against rancidity. So good boost. Also want to discuss, if we're discussing digestive health, we're going to touch on a couple of other things. One is the importance of fiber. We look back at our ancestors, they naturally consumed a lot more fiber than we did. They spent a lot more time chewing. We have the convenience of mills taking away all that, frustrating, get in your way, fibers from our grains. It's much easier to have the pasta when it's smooth, but it upsets our gut. But this has been, what's happened in the last 100 to 200 years in the food industry. So we want to get that fiber back in. Vague guideline, but I try to think for like 25 grams a day for people. So we might look at what they're eating and how can they boost their fiber. While we're working on the diet and they're making changes like, well, what can we do for breakfast differently? What can we do for dinner differently? How can we switch out, little things at lunch? Can we bring in a side salad? Can we, choose a higher fiber pasta kind of thing? Then we have the convenience of fiber supplements. So Fiber Smart, you can get in a powder. So throw that in your yogurt or your granola, or in a capsule for people who just want to pop things down, put it in the little pill organizers. It has a great blend of soluble and insoluble. So soaking and absorbing fibers, as well as scrubbing and removing debris fibers. We've got organic flaxseed, organic acacia gum, guar gum, glutamine, which is a nutrient that helps to heal the gut. More on that later. Marshmallow root, slippery elm bark, and triphala, which is very, very mild sort of Ayurvedic laxative. Marshmallow and slippery elm, I think of it as like aloe on a sunburn. You've got hot inflamed tissue. These ones just help to soothe and calm and make it feel nicer. So it's a very balanced fiber. So great for cleansing, good just overall digestive, and you can easily fit it into food or again to take it as capsule. Some people know that the reason they avoid fiber is because fiber makes them feel bad. That if I have white rice or white bread, smooth sailing, everything feels nice. If I have brown rice or whole wheat bread, boom, I'm bloated and everything is, big belly and uncomfortable. So some people are consciously avoiding fiber. We need to work on what's going on in their system and why they're having that bloat. But they would do better with something like the organic clear fiber because it is only soluble. So we don't have that roughage in there that could be feeding the wrong bacteria or the wrong bacteria in the wrong part of town. So just the organic acacia fiber, very well tolerated, nice and smooth, and it has been shown to help boost the bifido. So those microbes that live more in the large intestine, we can give them a bit of food, bit of a prebiotic for them, and that then in turn can help to support intestinal health. Fits into anything, right? This is the easy, I'll just mix it into my coffee in the morning, get your fiber dose in, get on with your day, or just put it in a glass of water at any point. So really, really easy to slide in. Yeah. Oop. And then we want to talk about the gut lining. So microbes, this is all the stuff that we're talking about that's like inside the tube, but what is the quality of that tube as well? The intestinal gut lining plays a very important role for maintaining our host health. I did this before. We want to have our gut lining, everything, all the cells nice and tightly bound to each other. There's no room. We're going to digest the food out here, absorb it through a cell, spit it out into the bloodstream on the other side. When there's inflammation, those cells start to move apart. And now we've got bigger holes and bigger particles of food or microbes can get through. So that's when we hit what's called leaky gut, or more professionally, intestinal permeability. So we have, here, these nice tight junctions. Every cell is shoulder to shoulder, nothing can break through. We've got those villi that we saw on one of the earliest slides. So we can digest a meal, which obviously has like some amino acids, and the amino acids are going to go through there, get packaged up, go into the bloodstream, and that's going to be sent off to the liver for processing. If we have toxins or bad bugs or food sensitivities, in this case, gluten, that's starting to really irritate the cells. We're getting some inflammation. Now things can sneak through. Now they've got gaps and we do not want them getting into the bloodstream. When they do, that's going to trigger our immune system. So you see more, maybe allergies or just reactions to things, more potentially autoimmune, more nutrient malabsorption, autoimmunity, food intolerance, blood-brain barrier breach, say that 10 times fast, or some systemic inflammation. So we really want to keep these junctions nice and tight. So cutting out food sensitivities, looking at the microbiome, minimizing our toxins and how well we process things, and bringing in something like INTESTINAL, easy to mix powder formulation, great soothing herbal ingredients that help to support a healthy intestinal lining. 5 grams, I like it because like medicinally, this is a solid dose. 1 scoop, 5 grams of glutamine, which is what you're going to get in any sort of like base glutamine supplement, but also 200 milligrams of N-acetylglucosamine. So if I think of a brick wall that's old and starting to crumble and fall apart, that NAG, the N-acetylglucosamine, that's like the mortar that goes in and smooths and chinks all those bricks together. It is sourced from shellfish. So anyone with a shellfish allergy, definitely do not take this product. But if you do not have a shellfish allergy and you've got some leaky gut or suspect some leaky gut, then this is a great one to look at. Rice bran oil, again, really soothing and healing on the tissue, the digestive tract. Cranesbill geranium is a bit of a bitter. It's a classic herb used for digestive inflammation. Ginger helps with motility, calendula, lymphatic movement. So sort of helping to clean up the immune system in that area. Also again, really healing. If you think of having a cut, you put some calendula cream on it. It helps to heal things up really nicely. And then marshmallow, again, that kind of like soothing aloe vera type, gentle healing of the tissue. It doesn't taste horrible, but it is not like, I'm going to have, I can't wait to do that again. You mix it up well in water, drink it down. It's not terrible. My kid takes it. I take it. But yeah, I'm not worried about anyone like overdosing on it, like getting in and having the whole bottle all at once. Not that I think would do any harm. I've gone much higher on that on all of those ingredients for people with digestive issues. Anyway, 1 scoop a day, fantastic. So this is the fun part. The things that we can do now. So yeah, there's products, and products do help. They kind of get you on the right track a little bit faster because they're bringing in sort of the Lego pieces you need to create new digestive tissue. If you've got dysbiosis, we have to change that. We have to get rid of it. But if we're just looking at other ways, what can I do right now? What can I leave this talk and just start doing to support my digestion before I go to the store and use my $10 nut buck? Stimulate your vagus nerve. That vagus nerve, that's the cranial nerve running from the brain down and touching our digestive tract. Again, it's part of the parasympathetic side, the relaxed side. So anything we do that helps to calm ourselves helps to support the vagus nerve. So yoga helps to support the vagus nerve. Deep breathing. So it could be a focused meditation exercise. It could just be like, turn the computer off for a little while and let's do 10 belly breaths or 50 belly breaths or 100 or maybe just 3, whatever you can fit in. But just get that out. The more you do is actively expanding the diaphragm. If you can lie on your back and stick your legs up the wall, that's telling your nervous system, I'm safe, because this is a very vulnerable position to lie in. And I wouldn't do this position if there was a bear skulking around. So I'm in a safe, so you can just lie down, put your legs up the wall, breathe deeply. That's going to help to get the vagus nerve going. Laughing, belly laughing. So hanging out with friends, particularly funny friends, or binge watch something that, makes your eyes water, you're laughing so hard, rather than something that makes you tense and nervous and boosts up the sympathetic nervous system. Good plant-based diet, right? Feeding the microbiome. They've been shown to have a positive effect. Sleeping, getting adequate rest, and even sleeping on the right side has been shown to be better for the vagus nerve than sleeping on your left side. Other fun ones, singing. So if you drive on your commute, put on song you love and sing the whole time. If you walk, then maybe you'd be better off humming, or while you're doing the dishes or whatever you're doing around the house, sing or hum. Whatever you can, like get that stimulation happening of the nerve, because it is in our neck as well. Gargling also helps. So, finish doing your oral care routine at night, just gargle a little bit, and that helps to stimulate the vagus nerve. Cold water, we want to build up, is just, start with a little bit of cold water in the face, and you go, you get that breath. On the other end of the nervous system of that vagus nerve, imagine walking into a cold lake. You're like, okay, my feet are cold, my knees are cold, my hips are cold. You hit that point of the belly and you can't help it. You're going to take a deep, deep inhale, just like cold water in the face, the cold water on the belly. So like either side of that nerve. So you can start with just cold water in the face, or in the shower, standing back, turn it to cold and just take little bits and, stimulate bits of your system all at once. And you can build up to a cold shower. When you're feeling super robust and strong, you can do the finish practice of like from sauna to snowbank, back to sauna, back to snowbank. That's like next level of vagus nerve stimulation. A little bit of cold water on the face when you wake up in the morning, cold water on the face at bedtime. Those are always going to help stimulate the vagus nerve. Spending time with pets, spending time with loved ones, whatever you can fit in to your vagus nerve. I prescribe meditation a lot. Chill out, right? So when you're stressed, that is the worst advice you can give someone. It's like, just relax. Like, I don't know how to relax. There's too much going on right now. But find those tools, find the meditation, find the people you can talk to, take the deep breaths, watch the show, drink the tea, whatever you need to just get this down. And yeah, if you can find if you're not allergic, go find a pet, get that cat to lie on your chest and have it start purring. Great vagus nerve stimulation. But I think a happy dog is pretty good too. So your key takeaways: take care of your microbiome. So plant-based diets, lots of water. If you're not having nice, comfortable daily bowel movements, it's worth addressing that. Heal the gut. There could be some leakiness and inflammation, and whatever you can do to reduce stress, whether that's looking at herbs for stress, any of the vagus nerve exercises, meditation. There's so many tools out there to support meditation. Playing with an animal, seeing friends more. We can start to reconnect again after years of isolation. It's been interesting to me. I've been treating digestive issues for more than 12 years now. And, some cases were tougher and some were easier. But these last 2 years, I don't know, there's more and more people with digestive stuff, and they've been more and more stubborn. And I think it's just this pervasive stress. You turn on the news and just, how do I relax my nervous system? How do I calm this down? So I think we need to really focus on what we need to do, accept the things you cannot change the things you can, have the wisdom to know the difference. So quick little sneak peek. I don't know if we do this. They're all now shelf stable. They've got some claims on there. The bottle is also changed for Renew Life. We've got a sleeve in there that helps to trap the moisture, so it keeps the probiotics alive longer. So we get that longer shelf life now of 2 years. All 12 world-class strains, non-GMO project verified. We knew that before. Gluten, dairy, and soy free. Most of them, all of them gluten, some of them dairy and soy free, still contain dairy and soy, supporting women's health. The capsule sizes have also gotten smaller with this relaunch, this rebrand. And then this little like citrus package. So you open it up, it smells kind of lemony. Doesn't terribly bad. Everybody wants to live a healthy life. A healthy gut can help. So, and then they're supposed to have a slide that says thank you, but I'm just going to say thank you there and open up to any questions. Where are we at?
And here we are. Thank you so much, Miranda. As usual,
pleasure.
That's a great presentation and so much information coming at us. And it is super exciting, isn't it, what we're learning about the microbiome? And it just doesn't seem to stop. Yeah. Every time we turn around, there's something fascinating coming. We don't have any questions quite yet, but I've got a couple I thought maybe I could start with.
Great.
One about, is there anybody that shouldn't take probiotics? Or when I've worked in our wellness area, people come in with some gut issues or some bloating and pain, and there is that condition called SIBO that may not do well with probiotics. So how do you sort of guide us to say, what should we self-treat, and how do we know when it's time to actually involve a professional?
I think the degree of discomfort and the duration of the symptoms are like, I've been feeling funny for like a week or two, and it was ever since I took antibiotics or came back from that trip. You can give that a try. I do treat a lot of SIBO. It's sort of the test I run the most. And yeah, we don't want probiotics then. We don't want all probiotics then, because we have essentially an overgrowth of what could be wonderful health providing great probiotics, but they're in the wrong part of town. The small intestine should be more like a desert. There's some life. There's a few cacti, there's some, scorpions running around, but it's not teeming with life. The large intestine is the rainforest where we have tons and tons of microbes. So if the small intestine is starting to become more lush and potentially swampy and fertile, then those bacteria can actually become problematic. There's one that wasn't in this presentation called Boulardi Max, Saccharomyces boulardii. It's a probiotic yeast. So for SIBO patients, that is the one probiotic that I will put them on, because it's not going to contribute to the bacterial overgrowth, And then we're going to look at antimicrobials and clean that out. Oftentimes SIBO will develop because there's a lack of motility. So there are some specific strains that do help to, get that motility happening. So we can move things a lot more. But it's not one size fits all. Really, we need to know what we're up against with that person. A lot of times we're deferring the bacterial probiotics until we've done a few stages of the treatment. The symptoms are down. We've cleaned out the small intestine. Now we need to support that large intestine that was also just kind of put on hold and potentially damaged by the treatment for SIBO. So not everyone needs bacterial probiotics, but if you are concerned and wondering if it's SIBO, the Boulardi Max would be a good one to try it. Saccharomyces boulardii probiotic yeast.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We have a couple questions now. Okay. Someone just saying, thanks so much. It was so helpful. The question is it okay to take a probiotic every day, or is it better to take a break once in a while?
Kind of depends on your symptoms, kind of depends on your digestion and what your diet is like. So, this is where I get one question. I'm like, I have 10 back. So if someone has good digestion and their bowels are moving every day and it's like the perfect poop of shaped like a banana, medium brown, half sink, half swim, like effortless, same time every day, then, and you just want to keep the immune system up, then I think the 30 billion and maybe every other day would be enough, because those cells of the small intestine are constantly sloughing off. Any bacteria that are nestled in there are going to be, carried downstream as well. If there is, gurgling, discomfort, bloating, variable stools, no two look alike, it's not working well, digestion is problematic, then I would probably avoid taking a probiotic until I've done a bit more testing and I know what we're up against. If it is SIBO, then we're going to avoid that for a while until we've cleaned it out. If it's another kind of dysbiosis, if there's, a bacterial pathogen or a parasite, sometimes it's a virus. Tested one person and she actually had like Norwalk virus. I'm like, well, that's why you have diarrhea. So let's treat that. So then I would be bringing the probiotics. So it's I don't have a cut and dry answer because it really depends on the person. If they're eating a lot of fermented foods, then they're probably getting in good probiotic strains. If it's mostly eating in restaurants and probably not of natural probiotics coming in through their diet. Yeah.
Sounds good. So for most people, a 30 billion for most people in otherwise good health is probably going to be just fine for a kind of a good safety net moving forward. Then symptoms that kind of keep presenting, might want to tweak that a bit to make sure we're stronger. Yeah, or putting our money in the right place, maybe get some professional help to see where we're at. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes a really clear mark of SIBO is someone takes a probiotic and it made them feel worse. Like, okay, so then we stop that. That's a big clue. Yeah. They're good probiotics, but your system is just putting them in the wrong spot. So let's address that first. Perfect. I'm glad you mentioned fermented foods too, because I think some cultures are better at that than others, aren't they? And I think North America is coming around, but kefir is great, sauerkraut's great, tempeh, miso, but sometimes it's a struggle for some people to get them into their diet every day. Totally. So it's nice to have something to fall back on. Yeah. Another question was, one of them we sort of answered here, do you have to take probiotics long term? The next question was, how long does it take for probiotics to work so you feel better? So if you're the kind of person that has something that, yes, probiotics will really help you, how soon might we know that? You may feel it sort of within the first couple of days of like, there was a deficiency, you taking it like, oh man, like, look at that, my stools have gotten bigger and they're passing more easily, they're more formed, it's comfortable, I'm it's effectual, eliminating it. Yeah, it can be pretty immediate. That's good. Particularly if it was sort of like a post-antibiotic. Right now you just got a little bit of that yeast overgrowth and that's your dysbiosis, getting that back in track, like, oof, that's perfect. Yeah. And then what if you're pregnant or something? Are there any contraindications for probiotics? Just off the top of your head, or not too bad, not too much? Yeah, no, again, historically, it was something, we were eating the fermented foods and pulling the carrots out of the ground and munching right away and bringing in those bacteria. No. If you're feeling well, you should be good. Okay. Another question was, how is the need for probiotics diagnosed? And I think you've talked about this a little bit in terms of symptoms. Yeah. I guess I'm just sort of in a general practice, you probably ask certain questions of your patients to try and get at that central gut health, which is probably part of that reasoning for how you... Part of the history too, like when did this start? How did this start? Okay. What have you done that helped? What have you done that, didn't help? If, sometimes it is just simple as like, well, I had digestive issues, I gave up dairy and now my digestion's fine. I'm like, okay, great. So let's put you on a non-dairy probiotic and, how much do you need it and how often do we need to take it? There's a lot of tests you can do.
So they are often private labs in the States and not necessarily cheap, but a lot more stool tests that as we learn more about the microbiome and the different bacteria to see, which ones are in balance, which ones aren't showing up at all that we want to be there, which ones are showing up that we don't want to be there. And that helps to guide treatment as well.
Right. That sounds great. And that's the beauty of our manufacturers, the good ones, because they put them together for us in ways that make sense, don't they?
Yeah.
Based on that research.
And that research is constantly changing. So we could have, completely new formulas in a year from now.
Yeah, that's great. Another woman's asking, is Renew Life available at Choices? Yes, it is. That's great. We have a really great selection. And I'm really delighted to see that there's that they don't need refrigeration, because that's getting to be a huge issue for people. It's just too much to remember. And people say things like, oh, if it's in the fridge, I'll just never remember it. So that's really, really helpful for sure. So
totally. And just travel, right? Just keep some at your desk at work and then,
Yeah, because we're doing that again. Is there a best time of day to take probiotics in terms of timing, before meals, after meals, empty stomach?
Generally with food, if we want to think about like fermented foods, we're getting the bacteria in their growth medium that we're, naturally coming into our diet. In terms of times of day, not really. I generally recommend mornings, that if you forget, you still have the options of, lunch and dinner. So with food, that said, my catchphrase for a lot of people is do it imperfectly rather than not at all. So if you're like, oh, it's always in the fridge. I forgot to do breakfast. I haven't taken them the last 10 days. Like, well, then take them with dinner. Then take them between meals. Take them, right at bedtime. That part, they're not doing you any good sitting in the cupboard.
Right.
So
and then, as you explained, if you're taking antibiotics, you take them away from the antibiotic.
Definitely
itself.
then.
So
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Now, here's a question about poop, which nutritionists love, and I know NDs love too. So what is the ideal number of bowel movements in a day?
That does depend somewhat on the individual. My happy place is usually 1 to 3 for people. We are a tube, right? We're essentially this big donut with this tube running through us. And even though this is like inside of us because we can't really reach it, food is coming in. We want to process it, move it down the digestive tract, extract the nutrients, and then expel that waste the other side. So generally it's kind of like, 1 per meal, food in, food out, food in, waste out. So I know the standard medical thing is anywhere from like 3 to 14 a week is okay. So they said, I think every other day. But I was chatting years ago with a friend of mine who's dating a vet. And so chatting with the vet, and it's like, if you say, hey, my cat didn't poop today, or my dog didn't poop today, like that, like, hey, we're doing surgery, we're getting in there. Like, this is not normal. But in humans, it's like, twice a week is okay. Like, no, I don't think it is. Take your meals, put it in a blender and let it sit at 37 degrees Celsius for a little while. Like, it's not nice. You want to extract that and get it out. So for me, 1 a day at least is my goal.
Yeah.
And if people are only having 2 a week, to get them to every other day, that's a big, we're cleaning house a whole lot more. But 1 day I think is a good basis. And if we can get to 2, and if people are having 7 a day, then like, let's scale that back. And if we get to 3, then I'm happy. So anywhere in there, it's also the quality of the stool and the comfort of the stool. And are there any others?
Right.
There's a lot of individual variability in there.
That's perfect. Another question is, do you have any specific recommendations for people with celiac disease in terms of combining those particular probiotics?
Not in terms of combining. Renew Life, it's safe because the whole line is gluten-free.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, no particular strains there. And it's like, is it early on? Is there the leaky gut? Do we want to be looking at the intestinal and the fish oils and like bringing down that inflammation? Or is it someone who's been a celiac for decades and they've got it under control and they know if they've been glutened at a restaurant or, sort of accidentally poisoned and just need that recovery? But no, for probiotic wise, not a lot of specifics.
Okay, that makes sense too. Sort of based on your overall health as per the other example. So that's great. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I think that's it. Does anybody else have any questions out there? We'll just get another couple secs here. Sure, yeah. I love how you explained about anxiety and people with digestive disorders, because I see that too when I'm at work, and I just think there's so much anxiety around now, and it's just not simple. But the whole discussion about the vagus nerve, and oh my goodness, it's so linked, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And it's exciting to think that by cleaning up somebody's digestion, they can actually relieve some of that anxiety, which is amazing.
And by working on their anxiety, they can help to improve their digestion.
Right.
So bring in the meditation, and you might have less bloating.
Right.
So, have a good chuckle with a girlfriend, and things might pass more easily the next day, right? So it's both. And it's like, oh, my digestion hurts so much. Like, there's so many apps, there's so many tools. You know, you can't just like, I'm no good at meditating. Everyone says that. We all suck at it. That's not the goal. Do it every day. Keep practicing.
Practice.
My mind wandered away again. That's what happens. Try
That's
it again.
normal. Do you teach your kids how to do things like that?
Yep. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah. The app that I use has a section for kids. So we do that. And then there's a good Dr. Zeus spinoff called The Cat on the Mat. So it teaches kids mindfulness in like a Zeusy type of rhyme. So
that's amazing. Isn't that important work? That's kind of the best that we can do now, I think, knowing what we know. But anyways, well, that's great. Well, everybody that's here tonight, thank you so much for your time and attention. And we hope to see you in Choices Market soon. And Dr. Wiley, as always, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. You're welcome back anytime. So we hope to see you again soon. So thanks, everyone, and have a good night. And we'll see you maybe back in a live seminar in September. And we'll be continuing with our online seminars as well. So thank you very much.